So, we've completed our prep work and now we are in the actual timeline and we're ready to start editing. As we do our edit, you'll see a lot of the benefits that come from having such an intensive preparation workflow, and I think you'll see that it's worth it. But before we get into our edit, there's just two more things I want to talk about. Over here you'll see that we have our main timeline, 1503 tame MM01. This is the edit of the event footage, but we've got two other timelines. First is called Grave. Grave is where we put all the footage that is usable, but we don't end up using in the cut. So you'll see this is the length of our track that we're going to be cutting to, and we have way more footage than could ever fit in a song that short. So as we remove shots from our list of cuts, we put them over in the Grave so that we can send the Grave to the client, and if they want shots swapped out, maybe there's a shot they don't want in the video and they want something else in place of it, they can go through the Grave and tell us which shots they want placed in. We'll go over this a little bit more once there's actual footage in the Grave so you can see some of the benefits of this system. The other timeline we have is called Sync. We shot a couple interviews, not a couple, we shot 10 interviews or so for this project. And over here we sync the picture to the audio. The audio will have been recorded on a Zoom or some other such device, and the picture will be on a camera. So this is an area where we synchronize these things. We might end up using some of the interview footage in the actual edit, we might not, but we'll get to that later. Alright, let's take a look at this. So, one of the reasons we do all this prep work is because sometimes the client isn't quite ready for the actual edit to begin the day we have footage on the hard drives. So we can do this prep work so that when all the data comes in and we're ready to do our main edit, we're totally ready to do the main edit. In this case, we've been waiting a couple days for the music to come in, for the client to choose what track they wanted. So now that we have that track, let's take a listen to it. Ooh, that's nice. So I've already done a couple edits, and you can see what we do is we try to cut to the music as best we can. Here it comes. Now you see how all of that stuff fell on the bass drum. Hit, 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 hit. So you want to be cutting on the beat. So how do you cut to the beat? Premiere has a nice thing. It doesn't sound very natural when you just listen to it, but if you step with your left and right arrow keys on your keyboard, it will just play that frame. What it will do is it will play the one frame of video and as much audio as could be played in that one frame. 1/24 of a, in this case 1/30th of a second of audio. So right there you heard that hi-hat. That's what a hi-hat sounds like when it's isolated. That's what a snare drum sounds like. And there's a bass drum. Hear that tick? So, you always want to find exactly that beat. The bass drum is usually the best one to cut on when you're doing this kind of event video. As you're going, just find that. There it is. So we could take this and just slide it over and cover up that other footage, which will delete it. There's another bass. Now, this is no good. We have the same shot twice. And you'll notice that this shot, if we go into 200%, is not nearly as in focus as this shot. So there's the second time we took the same shot, and there's the first time. Of course, you would want to go with the more in focus version, but what do we do with this one? This will probably end up in the Grave, but we don't want to be flipping between the main timeline and the Grave every time we find a shot that's not that great. So what we do is drag it up and create a new video track, and straight away turn that video track off. So this is going to be kind of our dumping ground for mediocre or lousy footage or decent footage that we just don't want right now. Then when we've accumulated a bunch of clips up here, we'll select them all and take them over to the grave simultaneously instead of going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So now we've got this little space here. We can just grab this clip, drop it in, go back to fit, and much better, much better. All right, so as you'll notice, the more we edit, the larger this gap will become. We'll just dump a bunch of these in here, and you'll see that the gap between this footage and that footage is always growing. And now we don't even have footage that we can grab. It's getting too wide. So one very, very simple thing you can do is lock your music track and select that gap and then hit the delete key, and it'll pull everything back towards your last clip. All right. So you'll see that this speeds up editing considerably. We've done all our prep work, and now we can just tear through the cut. Now you'll notice I've been doing cuts on regular beats. And all those cuts happen on static shots, so you want the feeling of constant movement. But sometimes you'll get to a shot with movement inside the shot that's really worth keeping. Like that pan wouldn't work if we just cut it down to half the length and kept it at the same pace we were cutting everything else. See, it just felt like we were starting a move, but we never finished it. So by leaving it longer, we've got that complete move. What you want to do is keep a clip going on your video. You never want the audience to get bored, and one way to make people bored is to always have the cut on the beat, or on the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes you want to do like a 1, 2, 2, 4, and that's what we're doing here, is we're holding on one of the beats. Just to give a break to the rhythm. Alright, so this will continue for a while. I'm going to turn off the recorder, and when we come back, we will have a much more edited clip. Talk to you soon. Okay, so we've done our main edit, and now we are going to look at wrapping up and exporting. Now that we are done, you get to see one of the benefits of the color coding system, and that is that at a glance you can kind of tell what your edit is going to be. So if I were to receive this edit from someone else on the team, I could look and know basically what the cut will be. So here we have at the top, we've got orange. That means that we have environment shots. This is probably establishing the event. Then we've got some people shots. More people. Red would be presenters, so we've got a good mix of people and presenters. Green looks like sponsor, so here we focus on the sponsor for a little bit. Purple, people, presenters, people, presenters, people, presenters. Then we get into a lot of purple. That is the after party, so this is people enjoying a dinner. We get into some green again. This is sponsor work, and purple is people. So just at a glance, you can tell that this has a decent balance of footage that evolves over the course of the project. Then over in the grave, we've got all our good enough to use but still unused footage. So there's one more thing we have to do to the grave before we export this project. And that is, first, create an adjustment layer. It'll automatically be the correct size for the composition you're putting it on, and stretch this out over the entirety of your grave. Next thing we want to do is add a timecode effect. Now you'll see we have timecode here, 153928. You want it to be SMPTE, and based on generate, and that should all be good. You do want to make a quick check that 24300 matches 24300, because this timecode is for the client to say, I want the shot that appears at 5:36:15. Then you can go into your timeline 5:36:15 and you know exactly the shot that they want. So this is ready for export. So simple as can be, file, export media. Now because this is the grave, this is not being used for the actual edit. And that means we can deliver it to the client in a smaller than full HD resolution. Try, I don't know, 720 by 404, not a problem. We could even go smaller, 600 by 338. And then to check if that looks good, not there, go to 100%, and that's plenty big enough. That's big enough to see what the shot is and to read the time code. You want it to be a VBR 1-pass. That stands for variable bit rate, so it will fluctuate a little bit depending on how much compression is or isn't needed. So next thing we want to do is make sure it's going to the right place. Click on the output name to bring up this menu, and then make sure it's going to the outputs folder of the file that you're working in. And we do not have to add anything to that name, so click save, and then we will go over to Q. So while media encoder is loading, let's go over to this timeline, MM1, and prepare that for export. So again, simple as can be, we go to export media, and this will be a little bit different than the grave. Make sure it's in the outputs folder, but let's change this to mm1_a. And what will happen is we'll have multiple outputs that go to the client. A is the first build, and then they'll send back revisions. We incorporate them and export the B version. More revisions, export the C version, and so on until the video is complete. Save. Now we want to leave the resolution at full, and we can make this fit. The only thing we want to do different now is VBR 2-pass. A 2-pass will give you a higher quality output, not explosively higher quality, just a bit higher quality. And there's no reason not to for this, because we want the client to be happy when they see it. We don't want them to be distracted by compression artifacts. For the grave, compression artifacts are okay because it's not going to broadcast. This is just backup footage. And then you would click Q on that. Now we are over in Media Encoder, and you can see we have the grave ready to export, and we have the first output. You'll see the timeline is MM1, but the output is MM1_A. Both are ready to go. All you have to do is click Start Queue, and you are off to the races. I hope this was a helpful tutorial on how to do the editing process and how to export for client delivery. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck!